My name is Heather Moulder. We are in my print and design studio. It's called Lordy Mercy here in Reedville, Tennessee. I went to college for graphic design, and so I was studying a lot of things on the computer. I was mentally preparing to be in a cube after graduation, and I did my internship at Hatch Show Print. And instead of cutting and pasting digitally, I was doing this very physically, like moving the paper, getting my hands dirty. And after I experienced that process, I was ruined forever. I went back to school and I took all the printmaking classes, and I started working at Hatch shortly thereafter. Even if I have a digital element, I try to bring a sensibility of a printmaker to it and put my twist on it. The logo definitely in my mind weighs heavier than just a poster. A poster is typically for one event. It memorializes that event and then it's over. It becomes ephemera. This logo for me is like typically more lasting. There's a lot more symbolism you have to fit into a small amount. It's not like I have unlimited words to fill a poster with. I'm mixing the ink. This is all from memory, so I don't know if I'm going to get Preds Pantones right on the nose, but from memory, I'm going to try and get pretty close. So just some blue, and I want to lighten that up slightly. So I'm going to add a little bit of white here. This printing ink is sometimes deceptive because it looks much darker on the page than how it prints. And one thing I have to think about in this process is what the ink is going to look like when it lays on top of the other ink. So I'm trying to factor in the yellow sitting underneath this and hope I get somewhere in the neighborhood of Preds blue. So I'm going to go a little lighter than I think because I feel like this navy color always tends to print a little blacker. Make sure I coat all the way across the rollers. I'll probably have to do a couple rounds of this just to get a nice good coating. You're going to hear the motor kick on pretty loud here. Hit it a couple times just to make sure it's nice and covered. I'm going to turn it off just so you can hear. I'm going to run a test print first. So this one, let's make sure it turns out okay. Not too bad. Let's do a real one now. And so I'm going to ink it up one more time. See if this lands in the right spot. That's looking pretty good. My mom's from the Philippines, my dad's from rural Tennessee, and so a lot of the stuff I learned about the Philippines, I had to really work to learn it. I didn't grow up in the Philippines. As a heavily colonized country, the Philippines borrows a lot from different cultures, and so I really tried to prioritize working in traditions and symbols that I knew had a long history and were kind of just rooted in the Philippines, and I hope that comes through in the logo. So when I was creating this logo, the set of circles that runs down the Pred head represents the kulintang gongs. And that is a very indigenous Filipino instrument that's usually played in a group of several different gongs and rhythm instruments. And the rhythm is very interlocking. It's usually done in community. And so in my head, it's just that sense of like playing together. You have a lot of interlocking polyrhythms. That's probably the soundtrack of this logo when I look at it. There are so many talented API musicians in Nashville, and there are a handful of us trying to learn some of these instruments, which if you're in the middle of Tennessee, they're kind of hard to obtain. Like you have to work to learn about your culture in this way. So in the process of turning the digital logo into a printed logo, everything is one color at a time. And so you'll see that I first printed this background in the golden color. And you'll also notice it was carved backwards. So I transferred that logo exactly, carved the background out of wood just to give that extra bit of texture. And then this navy color I carved out of linoleum just because there are so many of those tiny triangles. I wanted it to be something a little bit softer to carve. You'll notice that I simplified this print a little bit. These circles are red in the digital logo, but I was trying to make it a little bit easier on myself. And so this is a simplified 2-color version of the logo. But that is the final color. And this was definitely the most time intensive. I spent my evening watching Netflix and carving tiny triangles. There are definitely some direct symbols pulled from the Philippine flag. You'll notice the rays of the sun around the eye are very stylized in the style of the Philippine flag. And one of my favorite parallel details is that in both the Filipino flag and the Tennessee flag, you have the 3 stars. On one side, they represent the main 3 island sets, and on the other side, it's the 3 divisions of Tennessee. But I thought that was like a nice synchrony there that is included, and those 3 stars are on the shoulder patch in the design. While I think Nashville is becoming like a really vibrant community, especially within the API community, I remember growing up in rural Tennessee, like I would just be shocked when I saw other Filipino people. So I think anytime I get to see it represented on this level, it's always like a nice surprise. I remember as a piano player, the first time I saw another Filipino piano player in a band, and it almost made me cry. And so I hope that, folks are pleasantly surprised when they see something that they may latch on to whenever they get to see this logo for the first time.